So the allegations came out earlier this month. This woman who is about 18 years old, she's a university student. She came forward in a series of posts on social media and on in an interview with a Chinese media outlet, basically accusing Kris Wu of at, inviting her, having his agent invite her to what was supposed to be a casting call for a music video. But what it ended up being was a party. And she was at this party. She said she was pressured to drink cocktails. She somehow ended up in her bed and they had sex that night. She said it was against her will. We don't know more details than that. And she said that she was not the only one that was subject to this. She said that several other women also, she knew of several other women who also had experienced this similar thing with Kris Wu.
Well, there has been an outpouring of support for the accuser, but also for Kris Wu as well.
Yeah, he is a huge star in China. I mean, not a lot of people may not know him as outside of China as they do within China, but he has millions and millions of fans. He's as big as any pop star that you might have in the United States or elsewhere, and they are very devoted to him. This fan culture in China has gotten a lot of attention in recent months. His fans are so devoted that they follow his every move. They buy up his albums. They even make donations to charities in his name.
So how significant then is the detention of Kris Wu for the metoo movement in China?
It's pretty big. I think for a lot of the feminist activists in China, they have suffered a lot of pressure over in the recent years. There have been women who have come forward against prominent figures in China and seen very little consequences happen for those men. And in fact, the women themselves have actually been victim shamed and have really been sort of beaten back. And so I think for a lot of the feminist activists in China and for the Me Too movement, the fact that he was detained was huge. We've never seen a figure as prominent as Kris Wu before detained. And so it's definitely a big victory for the feminist movement.
As you say, he was very popular, or is very popular in China. How have authorities been portraying the case?
That's a really great question. So a lot of people, after he was detained, were asking, what does this mean for the Me Too movement? Does this mean that these people who have come forward before that will now start to see movement on these other cases that have been sort of, suspended? And I think that the initial commentary that's come out in the last few days from the government and state-run media and in commentaries shows that they are not framing it so much as a Me Too message or about feminism or women's rights. They're framing it more as going after celebrity culture and about, fan culture as well.
Really interesting. So what happens to Kris Wu now? He's Canadian, but will remain in Beijing in jail during the investigation. How long will this all last, do you think?
Right. We should say that as of right now, he has not yet been formally charged. He's also denied all the charges previously. And the authorities will have about a month to decide what to do with him. Right now, he's in criminal detention, so it doesn't look good on charges or on suspicion of rape. And so we will find out in a month whether or not he will end up staying in prison and going, facing further charges, or if he will be set free.
And will it mean the end of his career? He's already had his social media accounts blocked and his music taken offline.
Yes, I mean, I think that's a big question. It's difficult to know for sure, but a lot of brands that he'd had a lot of endorsement deals with have already cut ties with him, including Louis Vuitton and Bulgari. He was working on TV shows, on projects. He'd been doing collaborations in the US as well. And all of those are in limbo right now. I think it will be very difficult for him to come back for this, at least in China, because as you mentioned, he is a Canadian citizen. And so the likelihood of him being able to come back in China might be very slim.
And importantly, how might this impact the debate or discourse around issues such as consent in China?
I think that's the most fascinating thing about this whole situation with Kris Wu. His case has been very complicated, but what it's really brought to light is how much feminist thinking and values have permeated the mainstream in China. We really saw a conversation blow up about what you just mentioned about consent, about victim shaming, about the idea of abuse in the workplace. And those are sort of common terms and concepts now in China that we didn't really hear much about a few years ago. And so I think that on that front, at least in terms of the Me Too movement, that's feminist activists are seeing that as a positive change.
Amy Qin, great to talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.